Let me see if I can move this a little bit.
Whenever you're ready, we'll start the stream onto the group.
All right, I'm just going to put it on this. Yeah, I'm not going to be streaming, looking directly into the camera, so forgive me. But there we go. There we go. That's better.
You boys ready as well? Oh, by the way, this is Mevlud and this is Stefan as well.
How you
They're
doing?
both admins of the group with us as well. So,
do you want me to introduce again when we go live?
Yes, please. Right, I'm going to start now.
Oh, hello everybody at Call of Duty Price Posting once again for our second interview of this week. And with us, we got yet another very special guest from Call of Duty Vanguard. It is Martin Copping, aka Lucas Riggs. Some of you might also know him as Mozzie from Rainbow Six Siege, and also Sipes from Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. If you guys still remember that one and that mission. So I guess you guys all know the drill. Please be respectful to any comments and questions that you may have for Martin, and I trust all of you will behave yourselves anyway, and let's have some fun tonight. So, Martin, thank you for joining us. If you want to kick things off by telling us a bit about yourself and your foray into the video game industry and Call of Duty.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's good to be talking to you guys. I mean, I've been doing voice acting for quite a long time. I started around the year 2000, 2001. I used to do a lot of radio plays and poetry readings for the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, which is the ABC in Australia. And then that led into sort of more commercial work. While I was in Australia, I had a really flat point in my sort of acting career for a while, but I was always consistently doing voice work, which was interesting because it was never anything that I was really pursuing. And then moved over to the States, started, getting acting work, and but I had a voiceover agent here. I got one straight away, and didn't book anything for years. And then I think it was 2015 or 16, started getting some jobs, and then got the Infinite Warfare, and then a couple of other games. Some of them I still can't talk about. And yeah, bing bang bong, here I am. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and they've progressively sort of become more and more substantial roles, and I love it. Yeah, I'm having a ball.
So did your role in Infinite Warfare lead on to Vanguard, or was that just a completely different process?
Yeah, I don't think it had anything to do with it. Maybe the fact that it was another credit, helped. I think, the more work you've done in the past, the more it helps for, present and current jobs.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they weren't connected as far as I know. Yeah. And so, but I don't know all the answers. I don't know everything that happens behind the scenes, so I can't really, elaborate anymore on that.
About your Call of Duty, I don't know, are you a gamer? Did you play the game, and did you have any familiarity with it?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. I think when I did Infinite Warfare, I had an Xbox, and I bought. No, you know what? I didn't. When I did Infinite Warfare, I didn't. I was a big gamer growing up. I grew up in the days of the first console I had. I forget what it was called. It was like a Megavox or something, but it was
Megavox, yeah.
Yeah, it was even before that. It was like 1977. My dad had it, and I remember wiring it up. We had to physically twist the wires to get it connected to the telly, and I'd play Pong. I think it had 4 games: Pong, hockey, tennis, and I don't know, something else. But I loved it immediately. I was probably 4 years old when I started playing it in the 80s, and then I had friends up the street who had the Atari 2600. And they had like Jungle George or whatever, and so I just progressively, played more and more. But the first, I think, and then I did a lot on PC. I don't know if you guys remember the 286s, but we had like Prince of Persia and Commander Keen and the first Doom. So I spent a lot of time after school playing those, and then got a Sega Master System too, and lost a long period of time trying to beat Alex the Kid in Miracle World, and that that led on to just more and more gaming, Game Boys and what have you. And then I guess maybe when I was in my late teens, I kind of just stopped for the most part playing games. I was so focused on getting my my performance career up and I had a lot of guilt. I felt like if I wasn't just hustling 24/7, I'd get really hard on myself. And then I worked for Xbox when Halo came out. I used to drive around these, I don't know if you've got them in the UK, but Holden Maloo utes. So they're like a GMC, not an SUV, but in the back they had these hydraulic pulleys, and 3 plasmas would come and we'd come out and you could play Xbox. We had like tennis and Halo, and we'd just drive around places and get paid. I think I was getting pretty good money to just let kids come and play the games, and then when there was no one there, we'd just play the games. It was great. We had giveaways, beef jerky, so I just ate all the jerky. It was great. And then didn't play. So that was like early 2000s, 2004 or something. And then started working in video games and got the Siege job. I did the Infinite Warfare. I did another really big video game, and then did the Siege job, and it kind of blew up on social media. And all the passionate Siege fans would message me saying, do you stream? Do you stream? You got to stream. And I didn't even know what it was. And so I started just pointing my TikTok lives at the telly and playing Siege. And I was terrible. I was so bad. I hadn't played in years. And now I stream all the time. And then when COD came out, I obviously was working on the job. I'm like, I got to get good at this game. I don't want to be like I was with the last one when I try and play and people are going, oh my God, dude, you're terrible. And just fallen in love with the game. I have so much fun playing it. And, I've got a little squad. I've got a friend coming around later today, and it's a bunch of you guys would know the show Neighbours. They're a bunch of old Neighbours stars. So there's 3, myself and then 3 other Neighbours actors. We squad up and that's it. That's kind of how I got into it. Now I'm obsessed. I love it. Play it, pretty much.
Do you play as yourself?
I have, yes, on Champion Hill. But it's fast, and I'm not like, I'm
getting
learning.
killed.
So I'm still trying to level up the character, and I haven't even got him out of his first costume yet because I've been playing the campaign. I just got to my character's level on the campaign yesterday, so I'm really excited to do that.
Of course, you've been streaming all that as well on your Twitch, haven't you? I've been watching from time to time when I've had a chance to.
Yeah, you've popped in there.
Time,
It's been great to have your little cameos in there. But I love it. I think the game's fantastic. I've been having so much fun with it, and I'm super excited to level up rigs and have all these different costumes and finish the campaign. I know what happens, but it's great.
So you mentioned that video games have been with you for pretty much your whole life. So you're 4 years old.
Yeah.
So from growing up playing video games to voicing video game characters, and now you did I think you did motion capture as well for rigs as well.
Yeah. So we spent a long time on the volume.
So what was your experience with the voice work and motion capture with Lucas Riggs and Vanguard alongside the other main actors?
Yeah, I mean, we had some like very well established cast in this. Laura Bailey's an amazing voice artist and physical actor as well. She did all of her own performance capture. We had Chike, Derek Phillips, who I think you spoke to yesterday, they've all done a ton of work, and they're all just consummate professionals. And we had Don Monahan and other guy Dan, who played Freisinger, who's extraordinary. So it was a pretty, like, for me personally, it's a pretty special experience. Sometimes you do jobs, you work with actors that maybe aren't up to scratch, and you feel your abilities almost feel like they're sinking. But when, it's like cream rises to the top, and when you're around people who are as talented as those guys are, you're giving it your all. I would hope everyone does that. But it really does elevate, I think, everyone, in the group. And
it really feels in the game.
Yeah.
The chemistry.
I mean, yeah, I have to say this was without a doubt one of the most talented casts I've ever worked with, and we all had a fantastic dynamic. They're all super cool people. JB, the director's amazing as well. He's, he was directing it, but he's, my God, I remember when I started working with him, scrolling through his IMDb, and it took about 5 minutes to get through his credits, and he's super talented. So it was great to know that he was kind of steering the ship, and our creative director, Dave Swanson, was amazing as well. He had a very clear vision and knew how to execute it. And, yeah.
About talking in IMDb and directed, you actually have quite a lot of credits as a director. You directed shorts, and now you have movie in post-production that's getting quite a traction. Can you talk more about that? About the Dunes,
sure.
that project?
Yeah. So the Dunes is like an art house psychological thriller is how I label it. I wrote it in 2016 after my mum had passed away. She had a terrible drinking problem, and I think after that process, I was coming to terms with that and, other things in my life, and I really wanted to channel them into a creative area. Not, a lot of people go through difficult times and they become very self-destructive, and I didn't want to go down that path. I really try and lift up the people around me just in general, and I thought, what better way to do it than with something I love more than anything, which is movies. And and so channeled a story and wrote a bunch of personal experiences, and it's loosely based off personal experiences, but smashed them into this tight little thriller. And it's doing great. It's hard work. It's taken me 5 years. I did a Kickstarter campaign to finance it, and we had a lot of people put in a lot of money and commitment to help get it over the line. And we just had a screening at Naples International Film Festival, and they played it on a Cineplex cinema, and I was blown away. Like, we had a lot of issues throughout post-production trying to get it looking the way that it needed to. And when you're working with a low budget, it can be incredibly challenging, and it certainly was for this film. But seeing it on the big screen was a very special moment. So now it's just running the festival circuit and trying to find a buyer and get a sale.
It must be very proudful to see your work on a big screen in Naples.
Yeah, it's strange. I play the main character in it.
Yeah.
Feels a little narcissistic at times, but I did everything, because I was free. I didn't cost anything, so I saved myself a lot of money by directing it. I did everything on it.
Can you speak about that experience, like one-man orchestra? On many of your shorts, you are as a writer, sometimes as an editor and cinematographer. Can you talk more about that, how you deal with pressure and how it affects your workflow?
Yeah, I think one thing I realized is that I'm really good under pressure. You'll notice dealing with me, I'm just in my day-to-day life, I'm often a couple of minutes late or leave things to the last minute, but that's when I shine, in that last few minutes. And I think I like that rush of how can I make this work when it seems impossible. And but the biggest thing I did was I surrounded myself by the most talented people I could find, and that I had access to, and once again, they lift you up, and they carry you. And I think that, to me, that's the biggest thing, is having a really supportive team around you, who know what they're doing, and that kind of watches your own back. If you screw that bit up, then you're in trouble.
Do you feel like that you have experience in directing as an actor? It gives you a bit of advantage compared to actors who don't have directing experience?
Yeah, without a doubt, I would say so. Yeah. I think it gives you the ability to know if someone's doing an honest performance or if they're just sort of winging it in, and then knowing how to kind of circumvent that. I've had a few experiences in the past where, we weren't getting what we needed from a performer, and you just have to find a way around it. And but yeah, I think, I've been performing my whole life, so you can kind of smell a bullshit performance. Yeah.
Very good.
So if we bring it back round to the game again, Vanguard.
Yeah.
how do you feel about the franchise giving the Oceanic, the Oceanic continent, some representation in the game? Because usually you kind of get the usual big powers of the Second World War and stuff. You don't get a lot of the Australian, New Zealand sort of representation in the games. How do you feel about it? Getting that representation in there.
I mean, I think it's great. It's a, especially World War II. It was a world war, and a lot of the world was involved, and I think it makes sense to show, different aspects of it. Like creatively, that's kind of not my, area. But I was happy Australia was represented, or I wouldn't have been in the game.
Yeah.
So, I've got such, obviously such deep ties to Australian history, and growing up in Australia, I've actually never been. I've stopped over in New Zealand, but I've never spent a significant amount of time there. But I think there is something different that I find in Australia. It's a very unique place, and it has a very unique history. And I feel very fortunate that people will let me represent part of that history, and I personally think they did really well with it, and I had a great time. And
I think a lot of the time everyone's just sort of used to America and Russia and Japan, Germany all being the centre of attention. But if you really look back on the history, that Australia and New Zealand, they had a lot. They had a huge part to play, especially in Africa. Even with your character's mission, in Tobruk as well. It's very important to actually show not just these bigger powers, so to speak. It's very important to show what everybody else really did. Canada as well. They get a lot of they don't get represented quite anywhere near as much as they deserve. Same with a lot of other countries, and it's nice. It's definitely nice for me to see that happen. Definitely.
Yeah, as I said, obviously being Australian, as an Australian, it's nice to see your stories told, and I loved how they did it, and the writing was extraordinary. The relationship between Riggs and Des it felt very, very familiar. And Nico, who plays Des, Nikolaev, he's an awesome actor. I've known him for 15 years. We used to live in the same apartment complex, and it really did feel like an organic, real friendship. It is.
We felt it.
It was special. It was a really special experience. So I'm really happy that they had an Australian component to it.
Yeah, talking about the feel of the friendship and stuff as well. The whole game, I think the developers have done a really good job in finding a group of actors like yourselves with such good chemistry. Even though it might not be a film, it feels like especially when you go into the cinematic parts, it feels like a film, and you can be emotionally attached to the characters a bit more when you go through that, and you definitely feel that more when the actors have a lot of chemistry, and it really does show.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And we felt it on set. You
can tell.
The interesting thing about performance capture, it really is like theatre. You can't wing it. You got to be off book. You got to be prepared. You got to know your character, and everyone does, because everything's sort of one take. But it was just, I don't think I've really had an experience. I've had some great experiences on set, but the chemistry on this one there was something really special about it, and I put that down to the creative team, Dave and JB and everyone else involved, all the other writers and people behind the scenes, some of whom I don't even know, because these decisions go through they go through a lot of channels, and they're very well thought out.
That's great.
Yeah.
Sticking to the campaign of Vanguard, obviously each of the four main characters, their characters were inspired by real historical figures. And I believe Riggs, he's based off of the New Zealand soldier Charles Upham. Were you familiar with Charles and his exploits before taking on the character of Lucas Riggs, or did you find out after and have to do research?
Yeah,
Or...
I mean, I think the characters, as far as I know, weren't based off anyone. They were inspired by some people who left an incredible legacy, and yeah, Charles Upham was one of them, and the Rats of Tobruk, and I did, for every role that I do a lot of research, and I researched the Rats of Tobruk, and I researched Charles and a bunch of other historical figures, who were a party of that war. And I think it's very important to do that with every role that you take on, especially if it is inspired by real kind of events, which most things are in some respect. Yeah, so I watched a lot of YouTube videos and spoke to friends who knew some of the rats, and yeah, just try and make it as honest and just as honest as possible. But the interesting thing is, I think with those characterizations is it's still a character that I have to make.
Yeah.
It has input from other areas, and I think it's super important to find my truth in that. And I find the more research you do into the Commonwealth soldiers and what have you, the more that will feed your performance and give you material and emotional content to draw from. Yeah, I always try and do as much research as I can.
So it adds additional responsibilities that you are responsible not only for yourself but the actual person you are representing on screen.
I would say if it was based off somebody,
yeah,
100%. Like if Will Smith's doing Muhammad Ali, he's representing this person. This wasn't quite the case in this, so
yes.
But I have a responsibility to myself to be as honest with my performance as I can and do the best job that I possibly can, and then anyone that it's inspired on, I hope
And you did, man. People love Lucas. People.
I mean, he's a great character. Yeah. I love him. He's hilarious. Reading the script, I'm like, this guy is amazing. He's so funny.
Yeah.
And I like that the lovable rogue. It kind of feels a little bit like me, like an 8-year-old caught in a man's body, because that's how I feel.
I wanted to ask that, was it all formed up and written for you, or you had some liberty to express different aspects of it?
I mean, with this one, and with most jobs, good jobs, I try and stick as close to the script as possible always. But yeah, the creative team would always, give me room to ad-lib a little bit and experiment a little bit, and if it works, maybe they used it, and if it doesn't, they don't, but we would always get what the writers had put in, because they were just, the material was incredible, yeah, but I always had a little bit of freedom to try different things. They were very open to that. An amazing creative team.
Yeah.
And I did have to fuck around a little bit, but you're on a time crunch. We were going through COVID, so it's like, don't screw around too much. Do your job. Do your job, have fun, but get it done.
Yeah, I think it's a big compliment, because it kind of feels like improvised, but you can understand that it's all scripted, but it feels improvised. It's so natural, and you talked about the chemistry. Everyone is elevating each other, and despite the on-screen rivalry these characters sometimes have, you feel the bond, and fans are really excited for it, and to see more of them, of this character.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is the creative team and the writers would always, if they'd written something that was like an Australian colloquialism or just a way of talking, they were always checking in, going, would an Aussie talk like this?
That's great.
But I was quite shocked how well they did. They knew a lot of phrases that I'm like, Aussie would never say this. And then I get on Google, I'm like, oh, and then I'd start doing research, and I'm like, oh, there's a line I say drongo at one point, I don't think anyone said drongo since the 40s. But I got up to that bit the other day, and I'm like, that's awesome, because it is an Australian word, and a lot of the older generation will use, Sheila and drongo, and like people like my uncle, he calls people drongos all the time. I'm like, yeah. So it's a little bit strange in that respect, doing things that I wouldn't necessarily say, but once you lean into it and you get your head in the character, it feels very organic.
So when you were approached by Activision or Sledgehammer or whoever to provide the performance of Lucas, did they tell you outright, "Oh, we're making a Call of Duty game. We want you on board," or was it something that you found out after you were already hired for the role? Was it kept?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a very secretive process with video games, and sort of I think anything with valuable IPs, intellectual properties, your Marvels and your DCs and what have you. There's a lot of NDAs, and sometimes you can kind of figure out what they are, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't ask the question. Sometimes you poke around a little bit. So I won't talk directly about the experience I had, but it was good, and I always try and, like I said, I always try and do as much research as I can and know what I'm walking into. And whenever I did find out that it was Call of Duty, I was very, very happy, because it's an amazing franchise to be a part of, and I'm super, super grateful that that I had the opportunity twice, but particularly on this one.
You were talking about auditioning process and everything like that. It all happened during like this COVID period over Zoom. Did you find it to be a bit more challenging to do it this way, or
Nope.
You were comfortable with it, yes?
Yeah, I really liked it. I like auditioning in the room as well.
Yeah.
But there is, I would say, there's definitely a difference to being in your space and doing what you do than walking into a room with a whole bunch of, it could be studio executives or producers in their space. You're in their world, and you're like, you're doing your thing, and so I don't mind having my own space to do it. I'm a pretty confident guy, so I can go into those rooms and do that. But it's fine, whatever. I act, I perform. I'll do it on here. I'll do it in a room. Look at that toothpick, disgusting. Yeah. So it was fine. It was fine. Different. It was one of the first sort of Zoom auditions I'd done. Yeah. It's cool.
Okay.
You said you mentioned it was a Zoom audition. Was that so when you were providing the voiceover for Luke's as well? Did you have to, because of obviously the pandemic and stuff, changing the development process a little bit for the whole industry? Did you have to do the voiceover work from home, or did you still have a studio to go into?
Yeah, the initial start of the process for throughout pandemic was always, for all jobs, was generally you would do like a Zoom, or you would send in a tape. Often people just send in self tapes, and then the further you get down the process, you'll start doing in-person auditions. So you might be on with a casting director, a director, and a producer, and that's typical for most jobs. But usually it will start with a self tape, and I have to burp. I drank too many BCAAs when I was working out this morning. No, can't get it out. And then the further you get down the line, you're zooming opposite people, and then often you'll go in the room and meet with them. But COVID's it's turned things on its head. I think probably for the better. I always found it a bit of a challenge that before you've made it, you're grinding it out as an actor, living in LA as an example, driving all around town, time after time throughout the week, paying for your petrol, wetting your bollocks off, because it's so hot in LA. And most of the time it's like, thanks. They're always polite, and then you never hear from them again. Like thousands of auditions I've done. I can't even tell you how many thousands of auditions I've done. And 99% of them You're like, thanks, and you walk away and you never hear anything again. And it's a kick in the nuts. Like it's hard, and it costs you money, and it's difficult to hold down other jobs because you got to be available to do that. So I find with self-tests, you can't really see in the background, but I've got a cyc that I pull down. I've got actually streaming lights that are permanently mounted to my roof, and it's a really quick process. Chuck it down, pump out the audition, send it off, and then if it's real, if they, if casting look at you and go, you're within a realm of getting a shot at this, then they might call you in and do an in-person audition, and I'm happy to go in for those. But yeah, it's a grind when you're having to drive all over town for things that, not because you don't believe in yourself, but because the reality is most of them you're not going to book. So yeah, I actually think it's in some ways been a little blessing for the casting process.
Do you have some pro tips for people who are watching?
There's some pro tips for you. Yeah.
And you probably been on the other side of casting table, I'd say, for your movies. Do you think it also gives you advantage when you are doing audition?
100%. Yeah. I I've cast a few things, and it's been amazing to watch really good performers come into a room and just get in their own way. It's like, just read the script, say the lines. That's all you got to do. No one's out to get you, because when you're auditioning for something, it can be nerve-wracking, especially if it's something you really want. And sitting through a few casting sessions and just going, what are you doing? Like, what are you of all the things that you shouldn't do, don't do any of those. Just come in, be polite, introduce yourself, and do the scene, say thank you, and leave. It's you don't have to win an Oscar. They just, I think, for the most part, especially for a first round, people just want to see you. What do you look like? Do you have the vibe of the character? And if you do, you might get a call back. And if you don't, bye. I'll see you on the next one. So it definitely helps. Once you see people make those mistakes, you're like, oh, I've been doing that for 20 years. I better stop doing that. It definitely helps. Yeah.
Do you then prefer to be in front of the camera or behind the camera?
Honestly, I love them both. I kind of feel like I was put on this earth to be in front of the camera. But I think being in charge of the whole creative process is something that I just love it. And I also find if you're just performing, you're relying on other people to give you a sense of value, to give you work, to feed you. And I don't like that at all. I found it very disempowering. And, I don't need a lot, but if I do need to be working and making film, and, gaming's become a huge part of that. I built my first video game through COVID. It's nearly finished.
Can we get a scoop?
Yeah, I'll tell you about it in a minute. But yeah, I think, it's become kind of just a whole, what's the best way to put it? It's just what I do now, I write and direct and produce and perform. And I'm happy doing that, and I don't need anyone else. I got a phone.
We asked Derek Phillips the same thing, but do you prefer the voice acting side of acting because it sort of opens up more for you to play?
Not really.
You just like to be physically in front of the camera?
Yeah, I mean, I love them both. I think.
Yeah.
Not to be a cop out with the question, but I'm happy to sit in a booth throughout the day. It's what I like about voice acting is that you are so focused on the voice. But once again, that comes into physicality. It's you change your posture. You'll notice I slouch a lot when I do interviews, but you're not going to do that as a soldier. And if I'm doing voice work as a soldier, I'm not going to sit like this, and mumble out. I'm going to. It's still very physical. You just don't necessarily have the camera on you. yeah, it's fun. Like I would do voice work and play characters that would be very unlikely, that I would play as a performance actor.
Hmm.
But now with, PCAP and CGI, you can kind of, the two things are just really molding into one. So
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as a performance actor, you have seen the advent of gaming and how they are progressing. From they literally can, like, the smallest mimicry of the face they can transform. What was your experience watching all this develop, and what are you hoping that gaming and the technology progresses can show more in the future?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting thing to watch the process when I saw, our characters, but I'll talk about Riggs in particular. Um, it's the first time I've seen like a digital representation of myself where I'm like, that's me. Like,
Yeah.
not me, but it's me. You know what I mean? And I think it just keeps advancing, and it's advancing so fast, and I just think it's going to keep getting better. I think, the graphics are going to keep getting better, and little things like mapping out to even this, though, the expressions, they had my crooked smile on there. I'm like, how the hell do they even know I do that? You know what I mean? But it keeps getting more and more advanced, and I think it's becoming a more sort of immersive experience. And the thing that I love about gaming as opposed to, watching movies is I have times when I want to be a participant in something, and that's when I game. I don't, I'm like, if I try and watch a movie sometimes, if I want to participate, if I want to be active, it's an active process. Whereas I find watching a movie or a TV show, it's much more voyeuristic and passive. You can sit down and you're watching someone else. So I've noticed if I've got like ants in my pants, I want a game, and if I'm exhausted, I just want to put on a movie and be a couch slug. But I'm really excited to see, how it's going to progress, and they're making huge leaps and bounds. Some of the things that I've seen in the past 6 months, it's very exciting where gaming's headed. I don't even know if I'm allowed to know about it all or not. I just want to talk about it, but it's very exciting. But the what? Oh, the only yeah, it's very exciting. The only thing that I have a bit of an issue with working behind the scenes is the haters who like just pan game. They just shit on, gaming companies, and this is not that and this is not that. And when you see what goes into these games, like when you're actually, a witness to how many people it takes, these things are incredible, and it's all done for the people who play it. And so it's been, I've found it challenging, like, just online, people are brutal, and they slay all the different gaming companies, and they say terrible things, and they hate on games because it's not this and it's not that. And I found that a little bit challenging because I'm like, can't you just enjoy, this? Most people do, but that's been the one thing that I was a little bit shocked by. Because I'm so incredibly glad. If I get to play a game, I don't care what it is. I remember, but I grew up when I was on. You remember those Nintendo Game & Plays? They were like a little flip thing with like black and white images, and you press them. But even that, I was like, this is incredible. So now when I see things like this game, I'm blown away. Like, how the hell do you do it? I just built a platform game called Noodle Juice and the Lost Legend of Diddly Dee, and mate, that's taken 2 years, and it's like an old school Commander Keen or Duke Nukem type thing. So yeah, I'm super excited for where gaming's going, and I hope everyone else does their research and realizes just how much effort goes into these things. It's extraordinary, and the people that I've worked with in all the projects I've been a part of in gaming are so incredibly talented. It's frightening. You have the odd eggs occasionally, of course, but for the most part, you can't pull something like this together without just a phenomenally talented team of creatives. So I'm super excited to see where it's going to go. And I've got a little bit of insider info that I can't talk about, but it's just going to keep getting better, from when I was playing Pong in 1981. you know?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that the next chapter that people envision and the technology progress is VR is kind of getting a big thing. And how do you think, as a performer and as an actor, will you like approach your role differently if you know it's VR and like the player is kind of your sim partner in that? Yes, and is there something different about that, or it's just like looking in a camera and you know that it's a first person like on a flat screen? Can you speak
Yeah, I
about
mean,
that?
I think like there's definitely something for being on set for film, for example. I did a World War One film a few years ago, and you know, I was in the traditional World War One uniform. I had the
Yeah.
Royal Enfields. You know, we were fighting in mud. It was full on, and it definitely adds to the realism. But I feel like my job as a performer is to get myself there, however I have to do it. And if I'm in a mocap suit, I better have a pretty good imagination, and I'll use that. So it probably makes it makes it maybe a little bit easier to slip into your character or see the scene. But the trip when I started playing the Vanguard campaign is I'm like, I saw all this in my mind. Like they'd show you bits on the screen and stuff, but I knew exactly where we were. So I didn't find it that challenging to kind of get into the character and to feel the environment. And a lot of that's for the way that they'd set up the volume. They did a great job. But you've seen it. You've seen the videos. You're on boxes and there's tennis balls that you're looking at. Like it's a surreal thing. But I think if you're doing your job properly, you're there. You're in the battle. So I don't think I'd approach it much differently. No.
You are really intriguing us with this your game of yours. Are you at liberty to speak more about it?
I could say everything about that one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's called Noodle Juice and the Lost Legend of Diddly Dee, and it's a 2D throwback 80s platform game. The evil dragon's come to the land and he's stolen all of the noodles.
Oh my god.
And only one man can be trusted to defeat the evil dragon, get back the noodles, and restore order. That man is Diddly Dee. Diddly Diddly Dee! And so I've got a whole intro, that's all explained. And then it's a platform game. You go through the levels. I've had this really lovely guy and his team helping me in the UK. And it's a 2D platform game. And, I don't know, for anyone who follows me, you know about Stumpy, my mate, the one-legged seagull. He's a level boss in it. I paid tribute to some friends of mine and made them level bosses. And yeah, I love 2-minute noodles. I love like dragons, and I love Stumpy. So I chuck them all in a video game, and it's 10 levels of fun. So it's nearly finished. So hopefully I'll be able to share it with everyone pretty soon.
Yeah. Is there going to have a vocal performance, and are you going to be in it?
What performance?
A vocal performance. Are you going to voice the character?
Oh yeah, I voiced all of the characters. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you fighting with Derek in there, because he would be down for it as we are guest?
I know he's an absolute pain in the ass. No, he's great. He's great. Him and I have a very fun relationship. We just tease each other the whole time.
He wanted us to join in with that as well. He wanted us to give you a hard time today.
Yeah. I know. Well, I when I do my voice sessions, I'd get into the booth and there'd be messages from him just giving me shit. Good luck to kid. He's awesome. We had so much fun on set, and I'm still really really close with him. But yeah, no, I would love to. I plan on making more games once this is finished. It's a huge learning experience. I don't even know how to mount it on iOS and Steam and what have you. But that's what I'm going to learn to do, and then I would love to develop more games of my own. Just fun, nothing crazy. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are much more experienced companies that are doing that. I just want to make little fun things that I can give away to the community that have been supporting me while I've been doing this.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, but yeah, I voiced the seagull. I voiced the evil spiders. I voiced... Who else have we got in there? Oh, we got a werewolf. We got bees. Bzzz, it's not that difficult. You could do it. But yeah, it's fun.
And going back to the whole like sort of military theme with Call of Duty and Forbidden Ground, I believe film was called.
Yeah.
So so in one you're playing a live action soldier, and then the other a video game character. Is there a difference between when you're preparing or performing those roles, especially in motion capture with Vanguard as Lucas? Is there a different sort of acting technique that you employ for live action and motion capture, or is it different?
No. It's the same thing. You're wearing, like I said, you're kind of wearing different costumes. But I think you've just got to find the truth in the story, and and put yourself in that place, and then find the truth in the character, and perform it as honestly as you possibly can. And I think a lot of that comes down to the material and the people you're working with. If they create an environment where you're able to do that, and Forbidden Ground, 100%. But I mean, that was like that without the thought of death. That was like crawling through mud puddles. It's the hardest thing. I could barely move. It was because the mud gets so heavy, and it was amazing. But it's a bit harder. I'll say that. It's a bit more physical work.
A bit more dirty.
Yeah, exactly.
So between you mentioned how you were just crawling through muds, etc. Was that on a studio set, or was that an actual outdoor set that you were in?
That was on a farm in where was it? Not Orange, like it was near Dubbo in New South Wales. Johan, the director, through one of the actresses, got access to a farm, and he's a really, really good armourer. And so he basically, him and Adrian, the co-director, basically like built like bunkers, and it was in, like, we walked in there and like, oh my god, like full trenches and bunkers, and like the stuff you see in Vanguard. It was unbelievable. And then I think there was a lot of multiplication digitally to make them bigger. But yeah, I mean, that was like you're walking through that was wild, and I would say that is a difference where you really can feel like you're there for a minute,
That's great.
Once again, especially if you're around, good performers and good technicians who just create an environment where you're like, I'm in this, you legitimately feel like you're in it. So that is a slight difference.
Yeah, I think that's all we've really got to ask now. I think you've answered everything brilliantly to us.
Thanks so much.
Really appreciate you coming and speaking to us. There is one tiny little request I have from a friend of ours called Blaze.
Yes.
He is a captain of a team on Rainbow Six Siege, and he'd be honoured if you could hype up his player, Cammy CCE, as the MVP of the season.
What have I got to do?
He wants you to hype up his character, Cammy CCE, or say something.
Cammy CC. Cammy CC! Get ready! The big league's coming for you, but you can do it, mate. It's bloody glorious. There you go.
Thank you very much. I think you'd be happy with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Yeah.
It's a long time
Not
since we
about
started talking, organising this. I really appreciate you coming and dealing with this.
Glad we were able to do it.
Yeah.
No, you guys.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks.
And we'll be looking out for the game
No, definitely.
to save all the noodles.
Noodle juice and the lost legend of Diddly Dee. All right, have fun.
Okay, see ya.
See you guys.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Yeah, sorry about my brother. My brother walked right in.
That's alright.
I slammed the door and he goes, "Mum!" really loudly in Serbian.
Are we off the stream?
Yeah, we're off.
I think he was a bit harder than Derek. With Derek, it flowed more naturally.
Yeah, why is this not stopping? No, that's right.